What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to your second of 8, I think, Pay-Per-Viewpoint podcast that's coming up this week for the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. We are talking NXT Stand and Deliver 2023. We're going to run down the card, talk about the predictions of all the matches and everything else we want to kind of dissect here. I am Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
What are we doing, Tony?
And Robert DeFelice.
Listen, I want to say that I have combated my daily crippling anxiety and have continued to be on this podcast for like 600 episodes. I'd like to thank me and thank Tony and Callum for supporting me.
Well, you got to watch out that that whole anxiety thing might pass over to Shawn Michaels based off of the way that some of this is being built.
I was gonna say, like Roxanne, my anxiety gets peaked when Mako Satomura kicks me in the head.
Yeah. That's one of our strongest builds, you could say, for this pay-per-view. This has currently, 7 matches that are on this?
It's NXT Stand and Deliver, by the way. We're covering NXT Stand and Deliver.
Didn't I say it?
Yeah, you did, but it's worth reinforcing.
Okay. Yeah, we are going to break down everything from the top to bottom of this. We are obviously going to be doing the live coverage of it during the pay-per-view and then a post-show afterward and everything. So this isn't the full content you're going to get from NXT Stand and Deliver. This is just the prediction side of things. And keep in mind, as always, what we do here is we want to know what you have to say. So drop your predictions in the comments below on YouTube. Or if you're listening to this elsewhere, then either hop on over to YouTube or send a tweet at Smark Moment or post something in the Mega Maniacs or something along those lines. But keep in mind all the other things you should be doing here while you're listening to this. Hit the like button. You should already do that right now. Just do it. And then hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that already. Ring that little notification bell so you do get those little email alerts about when we go live for these post shows and anything else we go live for. And there's a little thanks button that you can see over there. And that is something that can help out on the monetary side of things, just to kind of keep the lights on here. And it's kind of the equivalent of if you're not listening to this live and able to do a super chat, sort of the same sort of deal. There's also the join button there, which gives you access to the same tiers that you can find on Patreon, patreon.com/smarkoutmoment. You got the Darkcast, you got the Pick Your Poison tier, or even just got the $1 a month tier. All that goes a long way in helping us continue to do these podcasts and to bring you more and better content down the line. So if you think we're worth $1 a month, then, at least toss that our way through one of those channels. If you don't think we're worth $1 a month, then I don't know what you're sticking around for. Because really at that point, oh my God, that's crazy. Redbubble and TeePublic are the merchandise shops if you want to pick something up for that, or Fanboys Anonymous, or A Mango Tees. And I want to remind everybody about some other things that are going on for the website right now. One of them being the Dusty Rhodes contest, where sponsored by Fun.com, you can win a Dusty Rhodes Funko Pop. So enter that in all the different ways that you can. There's so many different options for you to get at least one entry, if not hundreds and hundreds of them, depending on how much you want to actually do. And that'll be ending a couple days after WrestleMania, as will the Smark Madness tournament, where you can vote on the best wrestling family dynasty of all time. Keep in mind that, we've got the WrestleMania stuff, we got the NXT stuff, we also got the ROH Supercard of Honor stuff that we're going to get into, so stay tuned for that as well. Go back and check out the WrestleMania Pay-Per-Viewpoint that we had done, and now we're going to get into the Stand and Deliver stuff. So with all of these matches on the card, this is going to be either an event where everything's kind of kept short and they cram everything in there, and then it sort of seems like it's just kind of speeding along, or this is going to go pretty long. But they can't go super long because, they have to eventually stop and get into the pre-show of WrestleMania. This is going to start with the pre-show at 12. Main card starts at 1. As far as they've announced, none of these matches are happening on the pre-show. So I don't expect there to be a match added to the pre-show. They didn't do that last year, if I remember correctly. I'm expecting all 7 of these matches to just be from 1 o'clock onward. And they got to kind of at least end by 5, you would assume. I would assume 4, but 7 matches over the course of 3 hours. Kind of depends on how much they want to go, how long they want to go for some of these. I overall am looking at this card and thinking, this is probably the best card that you could have put together. There are a couple people that are missing, but they threw a lot of names in multi person matches on here. So they ultimately got almost everybody that matters on this lineup. And even if some of the matches are probably not going to be all that great, and some of the matches have really poor builds, or they have really laughable storylines that are going on with them, I do think that this is going to be a pretty damn good show. How are you guys feeling overall about it?
I told you on Tuesday night, this is actually the most I've looked forward to an NXT show in quite some time. And I think that with the matches they have here, this is the closest feel we've gotten to a takeover.
I think it's way, way, way too crammed, both with matches and with the number of participants in pretty much every match. And there's only realistically 2 matches that I'm like really looking forward to in terms of like thinking they could actually be great matches. And then the rest is a mix of okay and downright I'm fearful for their safety.
Yeah, I guess I know which one you're talking about.
That is
Grayson Waller and Joey. Okay. Let's start breaking down this with the match that I would assume if they for some reason needed to cut something, that this is the thing that they would cut, which is the mixed tag team match. Chase University, which is Andre Chase, Duke Hudson, Thea Hale, and I guess like ancillary member Tyler Bate. He's somewhat in the group, but he's not really.
Guru. He's like the guidance counselor, the yoga instructor.
He's like an adjunct professor. Like he's not really a part of it.
He bleeds Chase U, Tony.
Well, he is in there to help offset the fact that obviously Schism has Joe Gacy, Jagger Reed, and Rip Fowler, so they needed at least one more guy, and they don't have Bodie anymore. But also Ava Raine is going to be competing, and this is the first time we're going to be able to see her in the ring. So this is a match that I think is going to be one of those kind of, you just like speed along and you get like everybody gets a couple moves in, and within like 8 minutes, the match is probably done. Ava Raine is the most interesting part about it for me. I'm a big fan of Andre Chase, Duke Hudson, Thea Hale's fantastic, of course. Tyler Bates, great in the ring. But I'm more curious about what Ava Raine does with Thea than any other part of this, including whether or not Duke Hudson turns, or the stipulation for this, for anybody who doesn't know, is if Schism wins, they get to control Chase University for an indeterminate amount of time. They haven't really specified. All they said was the winning team gets control of Chase U, which is like, all right, well, Chase U already has control over Chase U. So essentially, Schism, you get to win and control Chase U. There's no way Chase U wins this. So does Ava get the win for the team? Does Duke Hudson turn on Chase U? Is this just one of those things where, you know, Andre Chase takes the pin from Joe Gacy? All that stuff is kind of up in the air, but I'm very curious about Ava Raine in the ring, and I 100% expect Schism to win.
Yes. All of that. No. The story here is that Ava Raine, Simone Johnson, is wrestling. That's why I was ready to laugh when you said, well, if they cut anything, it'll be this. They're not going to cut the debut of Simone Johnson.
I mean, they planned this out enough that they're not going to cut it anyway. But
they've been very careful to not have this woman wrestle on live events. She has cut a few promos. This is her in front of fans debut. And it's a bit pressure-packed. But of course, if things start to go south, hag into any one of the other 3 people on your team. So it's a good match for her to get her feet wet. And I think that no matter what happens here, this will be one of the talking points of the weekend, because it's The Rock's daughter and she's wrestling. As for whether or not Duke Hudson turns, genuinely, I don't care. I love Chase U. I think Thea Hale's phenomenal. I think Schism is a lot of great talent with a very weird gimmick. And this one for me is, my focus is strictly Ava Raine.
Oddly enough, I would say that actually out of all the matches on this card, it's probably the one with the most coherent and well-built story.
It's at least one of them. Yeah, I mean, they've done a good enough job of setting this up.
Yeah, so I think that Yeah, so I can't say that I'm super excited for the match because the participants involved, I think, for the most part, are all good wrestlers, and so it's probably going to be a good match. There is obviously the fascination involving Ava Raine. I'm gone on the record and I stick by this that I think that her combined time in the ring as a legal participant will be no more than a minute.
I can kind of see that happening, yeah.
So there's a degree of fascination, but I think that she's literally going to hit one or two moves, and that'll be it. And that's probably going to be the sum amount of her in-ring action. And yeah, she'll probably get the pin on Thea Hale, Duke Hudson, we will walk out or deliberately turn and join the group. Yeah, Schism gets the victory, and yeah, the fascination around Ava Raine and can she do anything, I don't think will be answered in this match because she won't have enough time to do that.
I'm certainly expecting her to have the least amount of in-ring action by far, yeah.
Let's hope that the minute is a good one.
It's going to be 48 seconds worth of standing and everybody going like, man, like she's actually going to wrestle, and then like a drop kick.
well, she's standing, now she needs to deliver.
That's true.
This is what we're here for.
The problem is that like, as much as I enjoy, and I'm sure we all enjoy Thea Hale as a character, she's not exactly the one that I would hope to get the best out of Ava Raine in her first in-ring showcase. It's not like that's kind of the person that you do if you are going to do more of a character moment rather than a real in-ring classic to showcase, oh wow, this girl's great. You'd put her against Roxanne or Cora Jade or Lyra Valkyria or someone else that's got more in-ring experience and more in-ring nous to showcase her that way. This one is going to be that Thea Hale's going to get in her face, say, I'm not scared of you, get hit by two moves and get pinned. That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if they're looking for like an in-ring classic, obviously Thea Hale is still pretty new to the game and all that. She's not a veteran, so this is not going to be the Thea Hale and Ava Raine bell-to-bell show. Everybody else has to get in there too. I mean, you got to put a moment in there for Joe Gacy. You got to put a moment in there for Tyler Bate. So they're going to be doing what they do for things like Survivor Series, but trimmed down by a considerable margin. They might have a moment. I mean, well, they're going to have a moment. They might have a minute or two. Depends on how long the match is going to go, but we're all in agreement here. Schism's winning. So this feud's going to continue. They're going to have more matches down the line. They're going to play around with the storyline a little bit. And I am assuming if everything goes well enough, Ava Raine will probably have some match on NXT in the next couple weeks. Like a true match against somebody. I don't know who. Probably know it's Indi Hartwell or something.
Or it's just Thea. Or they just have a one-on-one.
It could just be that too. I mean, that would make the most sense. But if they're doing the whole like puppeteer, like you're doing our bidding thing, then they might just be starting some feuds with some other people too. But
I mean, that opens the door for a hey, they don't like each other tag team of Thea Hale and Ava Raine.
Yeah, then how can they coexist? And then you start.
NXT doesn't seem to know how to do any other kind of women's tag teams.
Yeah, I mean,
talk about that now.
Yeah, let's go into that because the NXT Women's Tag Team Championship is on the line. There are not going to be multiple different tag teams in this one. This is one of the few ones that doesn't have multiple different people involved. Instead, it's the people that were feuding with each other for months on end, Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn, who see eye to eye because one of them's a witch and the other one holds a bat. That makes perfect sense, right? And they are going up against.
Bats are associated together all the time.
And they are going up against Fallon, Henley, and Kiana James. Now, the story is still going on of whether or not Kiana James is cheating on Brooks Jensen. Jensen and Briggs, Josh Briggs, I should say, were not able to win a fourth spot in the NXT Men's Tag Team Championship match, but Brooks did get a kiss from Kiana James. We still don't know the whole Sebastian thing. We still don't know exactly what her brother Zach is all about, if that's just some creeper or something. And it's 100% gotta be Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn win these belts.
Yeah. And admittedly, this has been my guilty pleasure Tuesday night storyline because let's call a spade here. I have to watch the program for work, and therefore I will get any bit of enjoyment that I can. And this storyline is horrible, but it's been fun. But they need to move the belts over to the witchy season, whatever they're calling themselves.
Oh God, is that what their name is?
No, I had to think of
Oh,
something.
because I was gonna say I didn't catch that, but that's real like the witchy season.
I just thought of something in 5 seconds.
Witch and bitch. Maybe they should go with that.
I think that this match, for what it's worth, will be fine. It'll probably go the shortest on the card. And I hope we get a payoff to whatever the Sebastian thing is, because how much longer can you really drag this out?
As long as they possibly can, apparently.
Fire Dawn would be a good name. If they just matched up their surnames, it'd be Fire Dawn. That's pretty good. Or the Dawn of Fire. That's nice. But yeah, I don't really care about this match because I don't think it's going to be particularly good. And it's a whole build around the idea that Fallon doesn't trust Kiana, and Kiana is getting in with Brooks Jensen, and Josh Briggs just kind of there in the middle, just not really sure what to do.
He's always just happy.
Yeah. And so, yeah, there's going to be probably some sort of involvement of them. Maybe this is where we see Sebastian debut, and he comes out and everyone's super shocked of, oh my God, it's whoever you are. And it's like, and
if we find out
like the tag titles are being supplanted for the bigger story, which is, will Brooks Jensen finally get laid?
That's one of the greatest on-running stories since the start of NXT 2.0, I think.
Well, I mean, he made it to first base this week.
He did, and Booker T and Vic Joseph were very happy for him.
I like them. I like them because they just, that what they're watching it just is bad, but they're just gonna have fun with it. So I appreciate that.
So is this where we find out that Josh is his middle name because Sebastian is his first name?
I've been trying to imagine what they're gonna do with a twist like that, because if they would have had a very short name, like let's say just like Joe, then it's like, oh, that could stand for the J-O and Josh Briggs, or you know what I mean, like one of those kind of deals. But I'm like, Sebastian's a full name already. It wouldn't make any sense for them to be like, oh, and Sebastian is actually short for Quincy Elliott or something. I mean, I don't know why I went with Quincy Elliott of all people, but because it's certainly not going to be Quincy Elliott.
I'm imagining that someone is going to come out, the music's going to hit, and it's under the sea, and it's a guy dressed as a red lobster.
Yeah,
comes down, because that's the only Sebastian in media that I know outside of the guy who.
That's what I keep thinking too.
Outside of the guy who's was played by Ryan Philippe in Cruel Intentions.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So it's either one of those, and it can't be anyone else.
Maybe it's a combo. Ooh, you know how like there's like
really moody lobster.
You go to like those carnivals back in the day, and it's like Lobster Boy.
A really moody rich lobster that wants to fuck his sister.
Yeah, there you go. That's the new twist in the story.
Yeah. His sister is Kiana. Oh my God, it's the brother. That's why he wants to fuck the sister.
Yeah, there we go. See, that's where I was going.
It all comes full circle.
Subsaction is his name.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this storyline's kind of a mess. It's really ridiculous. It's one of the many CW-esque kind of stories that they were doing in NXT that it doesn't quite land. I know where they're going. I know what they're trying to do. And it is more interesting, I'll admit, than to just keep the belts on Caden Carter and Casey Catanzaro. Or what's her name? God, I always forget because it's dumb.
Katana Chance.
Katana Chance, yeah. It's Casey and Casey. I really hate the whole Katana Chance thing. But yeah, when they were
back straight whiskey,
when they were holding the championships, and all they were doing was going, "We're such party animals," and it's like, God, you got no energy.
And then just randomly like, well, we're the only two that are allowed to be friends, so we're gonna be bitches,
right?
What? And
their idea of being like, the super energetic people was Katana lays down when she gets in the ring. It's just, I don't know, that none of that worked for me. So I will say, at least I'm more invested in this than I would have been if this would have just been Casey and Casey against like I don't know, Elektra Lopez and Valentina Feroz or something like that. At least they got a hook, kind of. And the belts are going to change hands, so that'll be interesting too. And maybe we get to see Sebastian. I don't know. Who would be the weirdest person you could imagine being on the card from the lineup to be like, and haha, it turned out that guy was Sebastian.
Like, we already know that they exist.
Yeah, like it turns out, like, I mean, you would assume that it would probably be somebody like a Lucian Price or something, but Scott Scripps, that'd be something. Yeah, Scripps is his like street name, but his actual name's Sebastian. It's just
no, his actual name's Thomas Reginald Sebastian Scripps.
Thomas Reginald Sebastian Scripps.
The third.
Yeah.
Esquire.
Boa. Why not? Where the hell's Boa?
I don't know what's going on with Boa. Yeah, that's weird. You know, they probably should have just talked to Apollo Crews and he could have told them who Sebastian is. He's got a vision for these things, right?
That would have been silly, but also a good use of their continuity.
I can imagine that they're going to potentially just rename somebody like Cal Dixon. It's just going to be like, that guy's name now is Sebastian something or other. But they didn't trademark anything yet. I've been paying attention to that.
Yeah, I've been paying too much attention to that. Just to like when we're getting, okay, they've trademarked the name.
Yeah, it's like a Sebastian Jones or something. And then we go like, okay, now we're getting a repackaging of like Tank Ledger or something. But
the only other Sebastian this company's ever employed is Heath Slater, who was briefly Sebastian Slater.
Really?
While he was in FCW.
Sebastian Slater. Well, it was better than just Heath.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe he returns. But we got that going on. We got the tag team division on the men's side as Gallus defending against the Creed brothers and Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks Lorenzo. As I mentioned before, Briggs and Jensen were not able to get into a spot there. The Creed brothers and D'Angelo and Stacks were able to get spots in the storyline that I keep referring to as Gallus needs friends. Because that is all this turns out to be. Everybody that wants to have a title match with them, they say, I want a title match with you. And Gallus goes, you need to play pool with us first.
They don't approach them. They're like, hey, we need to talk. And then Gallus is like, oh, if you want to talk, you want to play some pool?
Yeah, they want to have friends. They want to have somebody to drink with and to play pool and throw darts and do all that kind of stuff. And then after they have a fun night, then they go, we'll give you a title shot because you were hanging out with me. It's really pathetic and pitiful. But since Briggs and Jensen didn't do that, they just wanted to win a chance to do that. They don't get involved. Pretty Deadly are hosting Stand and Deliver, or as they keep referring to it, Stand
and Deliver.
And Deliver. And then they do that pose.
Calvin, one time for us. Just give us a yes, boy. Come on. One time.
No, boy.
So, are you guys anticipating a title change here? Do you think that Pretty Deadly gets involved? Do you think that this is just straight up Gallus retains?
I think Pretty Deadly will add Pretty Deadly to the match.
I would like the D'Angelo family to win.
I think they win, yeah.
They seem like fun, and I like the fact that they've had this close like brotherly connection. In the sense that I think many people thought that in the feud between them and Wesley and Jack, that it might have ended up with them like breaking up. And that whole scene where Channing willingly walks to the bridge where he knew that some guy got thrown off and said, "Yeah, fine, I'm ready to die." But yeah, I think that they're the ones that I would be the most interested to see hold the tag titles, and I think Tony D'Angelo in particular has. Merits a championship at this point. He's been there for a while. Creed brothers have already been champions, but I'm not saying it would be a bad thing for them to win it again. Gallus are really boring, and so I would prefer them not to be champions, but there just hasn't been really any real build to this to the point where I'm like convinced one way or the other. So like guns to my head, I'd go the D'Angelo family just because it doesn't actually matter, even though I think that there's a good chance that Gallus just retain, because why not?
My ideal scenario for all this is that the Creed brothers go up to Raw and SmackDown, whatever Chad Gable ends up being on after what I'm assuming will end up being the draft. I'd like to see Otis branch out again, just because at this point, I think that Otis as a comedic character is something that they should tap more into. And if they want to do the Maximum Male Models thing, then that's another thing. I'd like to see Chad Gable with the Creed brothers and just have them be the newest form of Alpha Academy. D'Angelo and Stax, I think, would be a way more entertaining group than Gallus to be the champions. And also, I think that they could be in line for a babyface turn. So I think Indu Share winning the belt is still a potential down the line. They could beat Gallus, they could beat Creed Brothers, whatever. But I'd rather it be D'Angelo and Stax win here, and then they're the ones that drop it to Indu Share. Creed Brothers go to the main roster. Gallus just, I guess, basically sticks around because maybe they go to NXT Europe whenever that happens, which I don't think is happening in this year, by the way. But I can't help but to think that maybe Gallus just retains. So I don't feel confident in that. This is one of the ones that I'm really kind of like on the fence about. But I'm going to actually go with Gallus retaining here.
Creed Brothers should go up because there's enough, whether it's Gable or the eventual use of Gable Stevenson, if that ever comes, there's enough to the like amateur wrestling thing to where they can be paired with someone. And I think that they're a great tag team, and the main roster needs that, especially as the tag titles will likely be getting a refresh this Saturday or Sunday. And I think it's time for Tony D more than anyone in this match to get some gold. He's been a central focus of this brand since it started, and he's been the only one not really get featured in key championship pictures. Like, he was hovering around the North American title, didn't get it. You know, he fought Ciampa, but after what's happened to Ciampa, doesn't feel as, impressive.
And it wasn't like a championship. He's like, I'm the Don of NXT now, and everybody's like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and it's like, he needs this win because he needs to run with the belt.
Do you think he's going to, though?
Yes.
So you got, my prediction's Gallus. Your prediction is Stax and D'Angelo. Is your actual prediction Stax and D'Angelo, Callum, or is it just that that's your preference too? Because we all want them to win, but
why not both?
Yeah, there you go. So we do have those matches, but we also have a fatal 5-way for the North American Championship because Wesley wanted every fucking person on the roster if he could. He's like, give me everybody, and give me 10 people, and then Shawn Michaels is like, I'll meet you halfway. I'll give you 5. By that he means 4. So he's very slowly working his way down that number. But Wesley gave some spots to some people, then some people earned it. He is going up against Axiom, who won the Battle Royal. Dragon Lee, who he was just like, hey, same last name. All right, you're in there too. JD McDonagh and Ilja, who never gonna get fucking tired of doing that. Ilja Dragunov and JD McDonagh, of course, have been feuding for a while. Dragon Lee is basically there because it's like, oh, we got Dragon Lee. This is cool. He's gonna be doing some fun stuff. And Axiom, I guess they just felt like they kind of needed to pay off that story. I don't know. Maybe they just want him to do some flippy stuff. Is that a cop out for me to say Lee wins?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go Wesley retaining. Funny enough. I think that it would make sense if Dragon Lee won because they just transitioned to a new guy and they want to make him a big deal. I would totally buy into JD McDonagh winning this championship and having that be a focal point for him because they definitely like him. And Dragunov, of course, he didn't actually lose the NXT UK championship. So this is like a little bit of a compensation for that. It's not quite the same, but I mean, realistically, it's not like they're going to just give him the NXT championship and move on like that. Axiom, I can't picture winning the championship right now. But Wesley, I think the story here is basically he feels like he needs to prove himself. And if he fails, it does kind of seem a little flat. But if he beats these 4 people, then he's proven himself and he doesn't need to necessarily do the open challenges going forward and he could drop it to somebody else. I'm going to go Wesley.
I'm going to go with... I definitely think there's a new champion. And I can see the best choice being Dragon Lee. Start him off hot. But I'm going to go with... They want to heal probably to refresh. So JD.
There's one guy I want to see win the title. Well, there's two guys I want to see win the titles here.
Probably the same guy I want to see win the title.
Well, one of them's Ilja Dragunov because Ilja Dragunov's the greatest, and he should be holding multiple titles already. But I don't think he's gonna win this one. The other one is Axiom because Axiom's awesome, and I watched that battle royal and the ending sequence with him and Nathan Fraser.
Good shit.
Best thing that happened on that entire show was
Good
them
stuff.
two fighting for the final spots. He's great, and I think that it would be just for a pure in-ring perspective, him and Dragunov would be the two people I'd say, like, okay, that's great. But to be fair, Dragon Lee's a great wrestler, Jamie McDonagh's a great wrestler, and Wesley's a great wrestler. This is one of the two matches I'm really actually looking forward to.
This is going to be fun, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, these are people that I think can work with the multiple man thing and make it super exciting. Like, you'll see Axiom and Dragon Lee dive onto multiple people at once. They'll do a spot where everyone's diving onto everyone at one point, like one after the other. There's more and more people on the outside, and then one person comes in and everyone tumbles. I'm going to go with the safe bet and go with Dragon Lee, just because I think, he's new, and it's a good way to kickstart him quickly. You can do a rematch with Wesley in a one-on-one scenario later on, and that would be fine. I think Wesley's done very well with this current reign as North American champion. I think the story of him constantly trying to prove himself is good, and I wouldn't be against the idea of him holding the title, because he should then lose it to a one-on-one to a guy that you are trying to push significantly, because he keeps doing the open challenges and eventually it's going to catch up to him. But I think right now, with these guys involved, you can immediately send a message by saying, okay, we're giving the title to Dragon Lee. He's going to put on a load of banger matches as champion moving forward. We can move Wes into something else because he's done well with the title, and there's probably other opportunities for him. Like, he'll be a good guy to challenge the potential new world champion because of how long he's held the North American title. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to go with the new guy gets the belt.
And this is also a pay-per-view that we've had in the past. Sometimes they really like doing the NXT full title switch and just like a hard reboot, essentially. And then other times we've been like, all right, it seems like, 4 out of 5 championships are going to change hands, and then we'll go into a takeover and we'll leave with all the same champions. So I'm getting more of a sense that we're going to get a lot of reboots here. So that's where I go like, all right, well, I expect the women's tag titles 100% to change hands. Spoiler alert, I do expect 2 other titles to change hands too. The NXT tag titles are kind of up in the air. This is kind of up in the air. It's almost a no-lose scenario in my mind. Like, even if they go with Axiom for the North American Championship, it's not going to be the end of the world or anything. He's my least favorite of the bunch, but he'll probably have a transitional reign. He'll flip around and have some good matches and then lose to somebody. If they went with Creed Brothers or Stax and D'Angelo or Gallus or whatever, I think we're kind of all in a good potential spot here. But who's not in a good spot is Roxanne Perez. And when it comes to the NXT Women's Championship ladder match, she, leading up until this past episode, last night, was in the realm of, is she going to vacate the title, or is she not going to? What's going on? They had said that she was potentially going to vacate it, but she had some sort of issue, and this was like a medical thing that they did the whole storyline with her passing out and all. We still don't know exactly what's going on with that. Do you guys think that this is 100% just kayfabe? Do you think that there's actually some medical thing that, like, that they were kind of like, oh, there might be something, like maybe you have like an issue with your foot, and like maybe you might need surgery, but it's good enough for you to be able to wrestle, or like one of those things that it's extremely minor, but they were like, I don't know, let's just kind of play a storyline into this and all.
No, I think she's fine. I think they thought this would be super inspiring and yay, and oh my god, she's overcoming anxiety, and isn't that great? And look, we all struggle with anxiety on this podcast. I'm not knocking that. I'm knocking the horrid acting of it all.
Yeah, I mean...
And Mr. I Lost My Smile being like, let's not have you do the WrestleMania show despite the fact that you were cleared. It's not for me. I love that older, wiser Shawn Michaels is just so darn set on taking care of his kids. But golly, I just don't care. Like, if she was cleared and she wants to defend the title, let her do it. I do think that this changes everything because I think she's going to win.
I still think she's losing. She's going up against Gigi Dolin, Indi Hartwell, Lyra Valkyria, Tiffany Stratton, and Zoey Stark. It is a ladder match, so the winner does not have to pin anybody. Roxanne does not have to tap out or anything along those lines. You could very easily have somebody climb up and win that way. And I think that they've done enough poorly of setting up this idea that she might not be mentally ready to go and everything, that they can get away with having her lose and just turning this into another, like, there's more to the hunt and the chase of it than anything else. And Roxanne's won the title. She's 21 years old. She's got plenty of other times to have longer title reigns. I think they want to give the belt to either Tiffany Stratton or Zoey Stark. And between those two, if they weren't ready to have Mandy drop the belt, I mean, Tiffany Stratton's a very close character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she's gotten a lot of attention since she returned from doing something that's pretty obvious. And she, I think, is my number one pick here. I think Tiffany Stratton's walking away with the belt.
I would like to see her win. I think it's going to be Roxanne. Because now I'm fully in the camp of, all right, well, if she's going to overcome her anxieties, she better overcome her anxiety and win the damn match. Because if not, then what message are you sending?
That it's good to take some time off.
What I think is going to happen, and I don't know how they're going to do this. Well, I could do this safely is probably the way of doing it, which is probably the main argument for this entire match, because I think that if nobody comes out of this match injured, they've pulled out a minor miracle here, because it's I don't trust a lot of these people in ladder matches, especially because most of them haven't had ladder matches before, and they're not to be fucked around with, and it's so. Who knows? It might be better than I expect it to be, but I think that there is going to be some heavy bumps that it's going to remove my potential enjoyment of the match, because I'm going to be more scared of someone getting hurt.
I mean, if you look at it this way, Roxanne and Gigi are the two veterans. And Indi's the veteran as far as being on the WWE roster the longest, but that doesn't really necessarily count because she's just been a part of NXT for a while. Aaliyah's been a part of WWE for longer than some of the people, and that's still not quite the same. But Gigi has been wrestling the longest overall, and she still is only at the level of basically kind of what Tiffany Stratton is. Stratton, Stark, Valkyria, they're working their way through the system. Roxanne, of course, is only 21, but she has been wrestling for a while. She's also extremely tiny. And I don't know if I would trust that she's the one that's going to anchor the whole match for a ladder match, you know?
Well, what I think is going to happen is that it's going to look like she's going to win. She climbs up the ladder, and then she faints. And she falls, and she falls off the ladder. And then Tiffany Stratton climbs up and takes the title undeservedly, because Roxanne was going to win.
Yeah.
But her anxiety got the better of her. Her faint-inducing anxiety got the better of her.
I love that idea. I would not do it. That sounds scary as shit. I mean, would not want to try to pull that off.
Yeah. I mean, if you have something for her to land on that's fairly safe, or have one of the fainting thing where she's grabbing the ladder as she comes down, but it's just telling the story that she's fainted or whatever. Or maybe she just collapses on top of it, and she's just she's on top of the ladder, but she's just out and no one knows what to do. You just have Tiffany climb over her and get the title. I think that's the way they're going to do it, because then this chase is on about, because you say what's the point of her not being able to overcome her anxiety here? Because she'll overcome her anxiety at another show that they can build it up to her taking the title from Tiffany and finally setting that demon to rest forever. I don't know why this is the story they're deciding to tell with Roxanne Perez, but that it seems to be the direction they're going. So I think that she'll lose the title here to Tiffany Stratton. She'll win it, and I hope no one dies.
Well, you have a lot of faith in these performers, don't you?
It's mainly Gigi and Indi that I'm the most worried about.
They've both done ladder matches for NXT, haven't they?
Yeah, but they're usually helped by someone like, you know, a Candice LeRae who's in there, or someone.
And
Also,
EO is in there as
yeah,
well.
and EO and stuff like that. Sabine, like Zoey. Zoey's competent. I'd say competent. She's even good. Like she knows what she's doing. Roxanne hasn't been in many ladder matches before, but like I have a reasonable amount of faith from what I've seen of her in-ring credentials. Tiffany's a bit of a wild card, and she's only recently come back from a long-term time on the shelves, so I'm not too sure. Same with Lyra. Like from what I've seen, she's good, but this is a completely different type of match to what she's probably used to. Indi, I've always been very clear on the fact that I just don't think she's very good, and she's clumsy and very choreographed, and so I think that if anyone is going to make a serious mistakes, it's her. And Gigi is a bit reckless, so I think that might be the thing, that she does something that's
she like picks somebody up and she doesn't have the right footing, so they both fall or something.
And she won't win because JC will probably turn up and take her out of it. So
I just think in general, Gigi is not somebody that I would imagine that they're going to transition the belt to right now. And I can't imagine that they're going to give the belt to Indi. I can't imagine they're going to give it to Lyra. So it's either Roxanne retains with the whole overcoming the obstacle thing, or they give it to Zoey, which is a possibility. I mean, we're sure.
He is very good. If you want a wrestler who can down.
Wrestler who can what? We lost you.
So if you want a wrestler who can like hold it down and really perform well, Zoey's your girl.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Tiffany is my pick overall, so I'm gonna go Tiffany. And how about you guys?
I will say that my choice is going to go. I'm going for Tiffany as well, but I will say that there is part of me that thinks that they're just going to give Indi her flowers here, in the sense that she's been there for so long, and realistically, outside of a short run as a tag team champion, she's really done nothing. And the whole story they tell with Indi is she always falls short, and so she's the one out of everyone. Like in my mind, it's Tiffany wins, and then in terms of ranking, and then potentially Zoey, and then it's probably Indi for me after that, just because they'll just go, oh my god, she finally did it, she finally reached the top of the mountain. And it's just,
she always falls short, but today she climbed high.
Yeah, that's probably yeah. I can imagine Booker T saying that now, only with a lot more syllables. Places.
Oh,
she climbed there.
She did it.
No bread, no water, just ladders. Yeah. So 2 votes for Tiffany. What's your ultimate pick, Rob?
My heart says Tiffany. My brain says Roxanne.
What does your left elbow say?
Indi.
What else we got on this? We got the unsanctioned match. Grayson Waller against Johnny Gargano. And this is one of those ones that, yep, I'm down for it. Gargano's great. Waller's a lot of fun. Unsanctioned means it's going to be no DQ, so they can beat the crap out of each other and do whatever they plan on doing with whatever outside brawling or weapons or anything. So, I mean, Gargano in an unsanctioned match, you sold me.
I hope it's as good as Johnny probably wants it to be for his last NXT match, and this should put Waller on track to being the next guy they give belt to.
I actually think Waller's going to come up to the main roster after this.
You think he's just going to follow Johnny?
It wouldn't shock me if the way that they are planning on transitioning all of this is Gargano wins this and Waller comes out on like Raw or the Raw after. I mean, it could like doesn't necessarily have to be the Raw after Mania, but like an episode of Raw down the line and attacks Gargano and the feud continues.
And just says, yeah, Michaels didn't want me
Yep.
there anyway. Actually, you know,
Because he's been feuding with Sean. It's been doing the whole like anti-NXT thing. So it's not just a personal feud. He wants out of NXT essentially. And it could just be like, I moved on because NXT wasn't good enough for me. And I got signed to the Raw roster now. And I'm going after Gargano.
So hear me out. What if they have Indi help Waller? Because I've been thinking about this. Indi should be pretty pissed at Johnny for just like not helping her get to the main. Why is everybody else in the way on the main roster and not her? That's something that you could do to get a little bit of fire under everybody and get Indi kind of out of the NXT limbo she's been in.
Could work. I mean, she's got a connection with Waller, and then they could do Johnny and Candice against Waller and Indi. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that there's something there, I'm not sold. I think Gargano should probably just win just to, Johnny take over one last time. But I would like that idea.
I think that Gargano will win. I think this is a big test for him in terms of, since his comeback, he's not really had that match yet. Like, he had a good performance at the Rumble, he had a good performance inside the Elimination Chamber, but he's not really had that one-on-one match where just like, okay, this is the Johnny Gargano we all remember and we all love. So hopefully this can be it. I'm worried it's going to be a bit like the last few matches that he had with Ciampa, where it was just way, way, way too much melodrama and just too much like this could go, I don't know, 35, 40 minutes, and it's just like way too overkill. But that's the fear. Hopefully they just keep it concise and they just have Gargano get the victory. Grayson Waller bucks the trend of recent NXT call-ups because he doesn't go up and feuds with The Miz. He teams with The Miz because he is essentially NXT's Miz. So yeah, I think that you just have Gargano get the victory in front of the crowd that loves him the most, and then we see what happens afterwards on the main roster, which is probably nothing.
Well, there's also the question of whether or not Ciampa is ready to go anytime soon, because there are some people online, whether they have any credibility or not, we still haven't quite figured that out yet, but like Worked Wrestling, for instance, keeps saying Gargano and Ciampa are teaming up soon. And I could definitely see if Ciampa returns, and the last time we had seen him was a part with The Miz, if they do something where it's like Johnny and Tommaso against Miz and Grayson. Like, all that stuff works. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. You just kind of move along and transition onto the main roster that way. It's a lot easier than just being like, hey, Bronson Reed's here and he's working with The Miz for a paycheck and then disappears. And, the whole story with Dexter Lumis and all. All three of us are going with Johnny Gargano winning. And I think that it's pretty straightforward. If Grayson Waller were to win, there's more of a chance he sticks around in NXT. If he loses like we're expecting, I think that that's his exit. It's about as good as you could get, too. I mean, like, if you're not going to give him the championship, having a match, an unsanctioned match on top of that, against Johnny Gargano on NXT Stand and Deliver, that's a good send-off.
Yeah.
So then we also have our main event, the NXT Championship, where Bron Breakker is defending against Carmelo Hayes in a storyline that effectively is... it's time for me to drop the belt. Carmelo Hayes has been treated as a tweener, if not full-on babyface with this, which is interesting. I thought that was a good little wrinkle. Breakker has kept it simple. It's sort of like, hey, I've held the title for a long time, and Hayes is the guy that deserves to have this title match. I'm not ready to lose the belt, but kind of giving off the vibe that this is the end for me anyway. We're all going to go Carmelo Hayes here.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely be Carmelo Hayes. Bron Breakker doesn't need to be in NXT anymore. He barely needs to be. I don't know if he's ready for the main roster, but he's ready for something new. So let's get him up there.
I think a good way to phrase it is that he might not necessarily be ready for the main roster, but he's learned all he can learn in NXT.
And I think the main roster is ready for him.
Yeah, like he needs to take an uncomfortable step forward to be able to take the next steps in his career. He's going to have to learn some different things on the main roster, just as everybody else does. And whether that's on Raw or SmackDown, my preference would be SmackDown. I think that for some reason just would suit him better. Hayes is the guy. I mean, he's even calling himself him. He is very clearly a passion project, a part of this NXT era. He's somebody that's definitely close with Shawn Michaels. He's proven himself with the North American Championship. He's got more charisma than Bron Breakker does, so they know that they're not downgrading the championship in any means by going from somebody who's a great talker to somebody who's not, or anything like that. It's got to be Hayes, and I'm expecting that this is going to be a pretty damn good match.
That's the key to all of this. They have talked a big game about being the guys that Sean and Hunter pulled aside for the 2.0 thing. All right, now let's see you deliver. No pun intended. Because
let's see you deliver.
Let's see you stand. Yeah.
Because the one thing that Breakker hasn't really done for me is deliver in a great match. He got lucky with Dragunov, but that's because you're working with Dragunov. I want to see what he and Carmelo can do as a true testament to what NXT 2.0, the rebranding, was and is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to this match just because I want to see how they mesh together in this babyface versus babyface dynamic. Although I think the crowd is going to lean more heavily towards Carmelo, both because it's a new thing, and also that it seems to be the cool thing to do Bron Breakker nowadays. I think that I'm personally of the mindset that I think Bron Breakker's going heel in NXT for a while, because that's one thing that he hasn't been taught yet, is how to be a heel. And so that's one thing that you could have a run with him, just as like the top dominant heel in the company on NXT for a while. Have a rematch with Carmelo Hayes that Carmelo gets the victory in, and then you move Bron Breakker up around about SummerSlam instead. Just because I think that I don't know if he's, I'd say it's not a case whether I think he's ready or not. I just don't know if there's a place for him yet. And I think if there's a story lined up for him, then sure, bring him up to the main roster. But I doubt that there will be anything concrete, and so he'll just be spending a couple of months, beating Akira Tozawa and all that stuff. It's like it'll just be in a holding pattern for too long. Whereas if you use the opportunity to have him turn heel, brutalize people, work that style of match where you are the one in control and having to dictate the pace of the match a bit more, then I think that will benefit him in the long term more than a few months of kind of just meandering on the main roster. So yeah, I'm going with Carmelo getting the victory. I think it's time. He's more charismatic than Bron Breakker. I think he's a better wrestler than Bron Breakker. And so, he's the guy that can be the new face of this promotion, and actually like a face that could maybe attract some people to watch this show, because not many people do. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they can put together here.
And obviously, when we find out what happens, we're going to give our predictions down the line of who do you think could be the next champions after these guys, and where do you think this is going to go, and all that. When we talk about the post show immediately following this, we're going to cram that in there in whatever fashion we can. I am anticipating that this will probably end around 4:30, and then we'll get some time. And realistically, look, the 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock time frame for the pre-show of WrestleMania Night 1 is going to be just people talking. So I'm sure we're going to have more than enough time on a post show to be able to dive deep into these things. But that will come up on Saturday afternoon/night. And there'll be plenty of other podcasts in the meantime with that, but make sure that you are clicking back on the WrestleMania predictions that we had mentioned before. Make sure you are staying tuned to the ROH Supercard of Honor predictions we've got coming up. Maybe even going to record that right after this one, and then I'll schedule it for later on today or something. We've got the stuff that you can find over on fanboysanonymous.com that you should be checking out. Just go to youtube.com/fanboysanonymous, or obviously fanboysanon.com. Facebook and Twitter. Check out the Patreon for that. Share your support for everything that's going on there, including the Blueprint Project, where you can find my basic tease ideas, because I don't want to reveal everything all that much for a lot of different projects like Star Wars and X-Men and Superman and Batman and all that. The Batman thing in particular is the thing I've been focusing the most on. And right now you can go check out the Batman A Nighttime Story 100 records from the Wayne Foundation archives that I've been doing some chapter teases for. Chapter 3 coming up sometime relatively soon. I've had to put a little bit of a pin in that for WrestleMania, so I'll get around to posting that sometime in April. And of course, if you are clicking around on the link tree that you can see on anthonymango.com, then you can see a bunch of other links like my personal Facebook and Twitter accounts and such. And make sure that you are not just following everything that's under a mango tree. Make sure you're also following Rob and Callum.
Yep, follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. I'm doing a lot this week, as should be expected when you're working in wrestling. I am hosting the AEW post show tonight with Alex Pulowski. I'm hosting the Friday SmackDown review show with Alex Cardoza. I will be on these podcasts as I can be for Saturday and Sunday. I'm hoping I can be on all of them, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out the last edition of this season of the Power Rankings over on smarkamo.com, which will be coming out this Saturday ahead of WrestleMania. And then there is also the final week of this season of the Fantasy League. So after WrestleMania, we'll figure out who has been the champion for this year's edition and set in motion the results of the prediction contest for WrestleMania will set in motion the lineup for next season's Fantasy League. So you can check that over at www.fantasyleague.com, or you can find it through the navigation on smartcatmoment.com.
Alrighty, everybody. That's Pay-Per-Viewpoint prediction number 2 down for this week. Our Way Supercard of Honor coming up next. And then eventually we got the hot tags. We got all the pay-per-view stuff that we're going to do. We got potentially live watch along or something. I'm still haven't figured that out yet, but stay tuned and we will be bringing you much, much more content over these next couple days. Make sure you hit that like button to let us know that you enjoyed this podcast, and we'll see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.